In the vastness of the African savanna, each dawn marks the beginning of a new battle for survival. Here, life is merciless, governed by ancestral laws where only the strongest survive. Among the kings of this jungle, few are remembered, and even fewer have their names engraved in history as legends. Today, we tell the story of one of these kings, a lion who faced enemies, scars, and exile to fight until his last breath, and his journey would become one of the most epic ever counted in the Masai Mara Plains. Scarface, named for the imposing scar on his face, was not always in exile. He was born into a powerful coalition along with his brothers. Together, they reigned over the vast Masai Mara region of Kenya. But like everything in the wild, the balance of power is always temporary. What begins as dominance eventually turns into chaos. And for Scarface, the path to exile began with blood and betrayal. Scarface was born into a coalition of powerful lions, along with his three brothers, Morani, Sikio, and Hunter. Together, they formed one of the most feared and respected alliances in the Masai Mara Plains. At the height of their power, the coalition dominated extensive territories, expelling rivals and maintaining control over dozens of females and cubs. Hello guys, if you have liked these stories and have not subscribed yet, support our work and subscribe to the channel to help us. Together, they hunted, defended their prey, and eliminated any threat that came their way. Scarface, although not the largest of his brothers, was the most fearless. His scar, acquired in a fierce battle with rivals, became his trademark. With each fight, Scarface became more lethal, more imposing. But in the world of lions, time is the greatest enemy. As they grew older, the coalition brothers faced new challenges. Younger, fiercer rivals began to emerge, threatening the sovereignty they had built with so much blood and sweat. It was only a matter of time before the kingdom began to fall apart. The nights in the African savanna are silent and full of mystery. Silence hides the violence that always lurks. In the world of lions, this silence is the prelude to bloody battles. Scarface, already marked by countless battles, felt in the air that it knew the fight was about to begin. It would not be a simple fight, but a battle that would define his destiny. For years, Scarface and his brothers, Morani, Sikio, and Hunter, ruled the plains of the Masai Mara. Together, they formed an invincible coalition. No one dared challenge the four powerful males who had conquered and defended their lands with strength and strategy. But as with every reign, stability and peace were elusive. That year, a new group of young males had emerged. They were called the Four Musketeers, and they were hungry for power. Scarface and his brothers for supremacy of the savannah. The distant roars were the harbinger of a battle that no one could avoid. For lions, territory is not just a matter of space. It is a matter of life and death. Territory offers prey, protection, and control over females and animals. Cubs. Losing territory means being thrown into exile, condemned to wander alone, without the security of a coalition. Scarface and his brothers knew what was at stake. That night, under the glare of the full moon, the two groups clashed with brutal force. The roars of war cut through the air like thunder, and sharp claws met flesh. The battle was intense and cruel. There was no room for weakness, nor for hesitation. Scarface, even with his years of experience and scars that showed his strength, was surrounded by two of the young males. Scarface faced his adversaries with the ferocity that made him a legend. His roars reverberated through the night, and his attacks were accurate. But he was aging. Experience was his ally, but the years had taken their toll. Every movement was slower than before. Each blow no longer had the same strength as in their youth. The young males, with the energy of their age, advanced without fear, and soon the first critical blow was struck. One of the young rivals bit deeply into Scarface's side, tearing the flesh. The veteran lion roared in pain, but his will to survive was stronger. He continued fighting, each strike of his paw a desperate attempt to knock his opponents down. But despite his resistance, The enemies were many. Each of Scarface's brothers was also busy fighting their own battle. The fight seemed to have no end. Hours passed like minutes. Scarface's body was covered in injuries. He knew his strength was waning. His brothers, equally injured, were being pushed back, losing ground with each passing minute. The coalition that was once unbeatable was now on the verge of collapse. In a decisive moment, Scarface, exhausted and with his body bloodied, was knocked down. The weight of years and exhaustion finally caught up with him. He tried to stand up, roaring with the last of his strength, but his muscles did not respond. A of the young rivals bit his neck, pressing him to the ground. The king was on the ground, and his reign was ending. With Scarface defeated, the other brothers realized the battle was lost. One by one, they withdrew, their bodies equally bruised and their hopes shattered. The coalition that had dominated the Masai Mara for years was now on the run. For the Four Musketeers, victory was certain. They not only conquered the territory, but sealed the fate of Scarface and his brothers. Exile. Scarface, the lion marked by the scar that defined him, was now alone on the ground, defeated for the first time in his life. His brothers had fled, and victory belonged to the young males. But even in that moment of defeat, Scarface was not ready to give up. The spirit of survival still pulsed through his veins. Slowly, he stood up, his body sore and injured, but still alive. Though defeated, Scarface was not finished. With the last vestige of his strength, he stood up and began walking, following his brothers into the unknown. Exile was a cruel fate, but there was no other option. The one who once was the king of the Masai Mara was now doomed to wander the wildlands, where survival would be his only mission. But like any great leader, he knew the real battle was just beginning. Scarface, the battle-scarred lion, was now in exile. His kingdom had fallen, but his legend was just beginning. The savannah would not remember him as a defeated lion, but as a survivor. And so, as night took hold from the savannah, Scarface prepared for his next battle, the battle for survival in exile. The savannah, once a kingdom under his control, now became a place of uncertainty and constant danger. Scarface, accompanied by his brothers, walked towards the unknown. Exile, which for many lions meant a death sentence, was now the only reality for them. Every step they took was a painful reminder that the power they once had, the security of their territory, and the plentiful hunts were gone. For Scarface and his brothers, the first priority was simple: survive. Their wounds, open and festering, needed time to heal. Without adequate rest, without enough food, time was a cruel enemy. At every step, Scarface, he felt the pain resounding throughout his body. His back was lacerated, his legs shook with the effort, but the need to move forward was greater than the pain. Like many exiled lions, Scarface had to rely on his instincts and his own saliva to heal his wounds. Without the protection of a territory, without the help of his females to hunt, he and his brothers knew that time was against them. The lion's saliva has some antibacterial properties, but it was insufficient to ensure complete healing. The open wounds were an invitation for infection. Hunger quickly became an unbearable problem. Without a territory to hunt regularly, and without the strength necessary to face larger prey, Scarface and his brothers began trying to capture small animals. But even this task proved difficult. The wildebeest, zebras, and antelopes that they used to hunt as a team were now out of reach. Scarface, weakened, knew he would need luck and patience to be able to feed again. Scarface led his brothers on several hunting attempts, but failure haunted them. Without the coordination and strength he had before, each attack ended in failure. The energy they spent chasing small prey was not rewarded by the food they obtained. With each failure, hunger increased, as did the risk of death from starvation. The days passed slowly. The scorching light of the sun weakened them even more. Scarface's brothers Morani, Sikio, and Hunter began to lose hope. Scarface, always the most resilient, tried to find the strength to carry on. But even he knew who were in a race against time. Exile was slowly consuming their vitalit. The brothers no longer spoke. What could be said? They were isolated, not only from their territory, but also from their former power. The silence between them was as palpable as the heat of the savannah. Scarface knew that, in order to survive, something had to change. They needed to find a way to hunt, or they would soon succumb to starvation. But then, the unexpected happened. The wind carried the smell of dead flesh. A buffalo carcass was nearby, and Scarface knew that might be his only chance of survival. Together, the brothers stood up and began walking toward the smell of death, with a new energy fueled by hunger and hope. But nature rarely offers gifts without a price. Upon reaching the carcass, Scarface and his brothers encountered another group of hungry people, hyenas. The hyenas' sinister laughter echoed as they devoured the buffalo, defending each morsel with sharp claws and teeth. Scarface knew that facing a pack of hyenas in his condition would be suicidal. There were too many of them, and he and his brothers were too weak to fight directly. The decision to retreat was painful, but necessary. Scarface and his brothers didn't have the strength to fight the pack of hyenas. They walked away from the carcass, still hungry, still weakened. Despair was beginning to take hold of them. But Scarface, even despite all the adversity, he refused to give up. The days continued to pass, and hunger became a constant presence in their lives. Scarface knew that each day they went without food brought them closer to the end. His brothers were increasingly silent, their strength dwindling with each failure. But Scarface, with his scar and his unwavering determination, stood firm, leading them in search of new opportunities. Then, finally, the opportunity came. A small herd of zebras came into view. Scarface knew this was his chance. His paws, still sore, moved with silent precision as he approached the prey. His brothers followed his example, all aware that this could be the only chance to break the cycle of hunger. With a deep roar, Scarface began the charge. His brothers followed close behind. The chase was intense, with dust rising as the zebras ran in panic. But Scarface was determined not to fail this time, and with a precise leap, he managed to take down a young zebra. Finally, the hunger was satisfied. Scarface and his brothers, exhausted and hungry, finally got a decent meal. As they devoured the zebra, the silence was broken only by the sound of their teeth tearing the flesh. The fight for survival was, at the same time, at least for a brief moment, defeated. But the savannah is never kind for long. For Scarface, that moment of relief would just be a respite from the constant fight for survival. Years passed. Scarface, the lion he once ruled with his brothers, became a symbol of resilience on the African savannah. Although he did not regain the territory he once ruled, he survived battles and exile. His legend grew among those who saw him wandering the plains. In nature, the life cycle of lions runs its relentless course. Lions are born, grow, dominate, and are felled. Scarface was just one of many exiled kings the savannah saw. But his mark, both physical and symbolic, was profound. For Scarface, survival was a constant battle, and although he lost his kingdom, he never lost his dignity. In his scar, he carried the story of a warrior, of a survivor. And as the cycle of life continues, the Scarface's legend will remain on the plains of Masai Mara, where kings rise and fall, but stories never die. Scarface, the lion marked by life, lived and fought until the end. And so, the cycle of life continues, bringing new kings, new battles, and new stories to tell. And we have reached the end of another story. If you liked it, leave in the comments what else you want to see here, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you support us.